welcome to Sammy's Bookshelf. I'm Sammy and welcome to Orilium Week 2. If you don't know what Orilium is, it is a month-long readathon hosted and created by Book Roast. I'm not going to go through all the intricacies of what this readathon is. If you want to learn more about it, I will have the link to Book Roast's announcement video in the description. But like I said, this is week 2. You can also watch my week 1 reading vlog that came out last week. Now, it has been a couple days since I ended that reading vlog, and I took a couple of days break from filming just to be rejuvenated again to film for this week. But while I took a break from filming, I did not take a break from reading, and I do have some updates to tell you. First things first is that I managed to finish reading These Broken Stars by Amie Kaufman and Megan Spooner. I enjoyed this book so much. I loved the romance. I loved the connection between our two main characters, Tava and Lilac. I loved the plot. It was just so good. Highly recommend this book if you love sci-fi and romance. I am so excited to continue on with this trilogy now. This trilogy is a companion trilogy and it follows a different romantic couple in each book. So one thing that I'm really excited to see is how much of a role Lilac and Tava, the main characters in this book, are going to play in the preceding books, because it is mentioned in this book that their story isn't completely over. But also I feel like before I can go on to the second book where it's like a new romantic couple as the main character, I need to just sit with Lilac and Tava for a bit, because I think if I started reading the second book now, I would miss them too much. I ended up giving These Broken Stars a 4.3 out of 5 stars. And then I also read this book for the psionics and divination class, and so this fulfilled the prompt, read a book set in the future. Now, as for my plans, now that I've finished These Broken Stars, I'm not going to completely leave the Starbound world just yet, because tonight I am going to start reading This Night So Dark by Amie Kaufman and Megan Spooner, which is a short story that comes between the first and second book in the Starbound trilogy, and I believe it mainly follows the character of Tava. And this is for the Spells and Incantations class, where the prompt is to read a short story or an essay. I'm very excited to read this novella because I'm just not quite ready to leave the Starbound These Broken Stars world yet, so I'm really happy that I decided to read the short story for this readathon. So that's pretty much all I have to update you on right now. I will see you later on tonight when I start reading This Night So Dark. So it is now Monday. Excuse my wet hair. I just got out of the shower. But as you saw last night, I managed to finish This Night So Dark. It was good. It was only 60 pages long, so I just flew through it in like an hour. And I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was good, but nothing amazing. And it was so short. There wasn't really that much amazing stuff that could go in it and in such a short story. But I did really like getting to learn more about the character of Tava, who's one of the main characters in These Broken Stars. In These Broken Stars, there is this event that happens 6 months before the events of These Broken Stars that happens to Tava that is alluded to in These Broken Stars, but it never goes into detail about what exactly happened. And so in the short story, that's what we see. And so it was really interesting to completely learn what that was and everything that happened and how it ended up affecting Tava and his his character in These Broken Stars. And then we also still got some present day Lilac and Tava cuteness, which was also really fun. And as I read this short story, I'm just even more excited now to read the preceding books, because again, it is alluded to in the short story as it was in These Broken Stars that Lilac and Tava's story isn't completely over yet, and so that gives me hope that they will appear in the next books even if they're not main characters. But now it is time to look forward and figure out what my next reads of this readathon is going to be. I'm hoping that this week I can read another 3 books. That would be great. Since This Night So Dark and These Broken Stars were sci-fi, I think I'm going to switch back to now reading another contemporary. And since These Broken Stars had an enemies to lovers trope, I want to pick one of my contemporary books that doesn't have an enemies to lovers trope, just to vary it up a bit. So I think my next read, which I'm going to start reading in a mere couple of hours, is going to be If There's No Tomorrow by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this will be for Alchemy, which the prompt is a book featuring romance. And I believe this book has a childhood's friends to lovers romance. I am just really hoping in this book that there is no insta-love. I've just found the last couple of Jennifer L. Armentrout books that I've read have been a bit insta-lovey, and if there's a trope that I do not like, it is insta-love. Like, what's the point of a romance if it's insta-love? I just don't get it. I don't get the appeal. Of course, I will keep you updated on that as I read this book. I feel like I always end up reading a Jennifer L. Armentrout book in readathons just because her books are so fast and quick to read, but they always leave me so frustrated. But I do have hope because this is blurbed by Sarah J. Maas, who is one of my favorite authors, and she always has really nice slow burn romances, so that gives me hope. And I'm hoping that I can get like halfway and then finish it tomorrow, because like I said, Jennifer L. Armentrout books are really quick to get through, so I'm hoping that I can just fly through this. So I will update you when I start reading If There's No Tomorrow. Last week's reading vlog is uploading. I have started reading If There's No Tomorrow by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I literally read for like 2 seconds, so I'm on page 34 already. These are how fast Jennifer L. Armentrout books go. Like, I already read 34 pages. I was reading for like, I swear, 20 minutes. So yeah, I've started If There's No Tomorrow. Pretty average right now. I feel like I have such low expectations going into this book just because of how disappointed I've been from the recent Jennifer L. Armentrout books that I've read. But I'm trying to keep an open mind, but I haven't really read enough to be able to really critique it yet. But so far it's pretty average, although there was a point where literally the main character is reading ACOTAR. Like, no wonder it's blurred by Sarah J. Maas. Like, Sarah J. Maas got some like marketing in this book. That was kind of fun. But yeah, so I'm gonna keep reading this. I started reading a little bit later than I wanted to, so I'm gonna try and read as much as possible before I go to bed. So let's read. You're such a big baby. Hello, so it is now Tuesday, and I thought I'd give a little update on what I managed to read last night. So as you saw, I started If There's No Tomorrow, and I managed to get halfway through the book, which I'm very happy about because that was my goal, was to reach halfway. And then I'm hoping that tonight I can completely finish the book and then start a new book tomorrow. As for my thoughts on this book, I'm actually really enjoying it. Like I said last night, I had pretty low expectations going into this book just because I've been disappointed by a couple of Jennifer L. Armentrout books that I've read recently, but I'm actually really enjoying this. Now, it's not like 100% perfect. Like, I find the writing to be a bit amateurish, but in terms of the way that the book is structured and the actual story and the plot, I'm really enjoying it. So I'm really happy that this book is pleasantly surprising me. It's way better than I thought it was going to be. be. It's not amazing, but I'm still having a good time. Although maybe not a good time because this book is actually kind of sad and emotional, but it's a good book so far. Now, I actually have to go into the city to go to uni today, but I decided today that I was going to go in a little bit earlier because I am going to stop at the bookstore. Now, in the city, about 10 minutes away from my uni, there's this big bookstore and it's multiple stories, and I've only actually been there once throughout the whole time I've been going to uni, even though it's only 10 minutes away. And so I decided today, because I don't have class till 3:30, that I'm gonna go in early and go to the bookstore. So we're gonna have a little mini come book shopping with me in this reading vlog. From uni now, and as you saw, I bought some books, so I thought that we could do a little mini book haul now that I'm back home from my travels. So of course I went into the bookstore with my trusty House of Sky and Breath tote bag. I ended up picking up 4 books while I was at the bookstore, and the first book that I picked up was one that I kind of knew I already wanted going in, so I'm really happy that they ended up having it, and that is Call It What You Want by Bridget Kemmerer. I've been really needing to stock up on my contemporary young adult books because I have a lot of new adult and adult contemporary books, but my young adult contemporaries are dwindling, so I've been needing to stock back up on some of those. And I've been really wanting to read Bridget Kemmerer's contemporary books because I've read her Cursebreaker trilogy and Defy the Night and really enjoyed all of those books, and her characters are always so great in her fantasy books, so I was really interested to see how that would translate in a contemporary, because obviously contemporary books are all about the characters, and so I knew I really wanted to read Call It What You Want because the synopsis sounds really interesting, and also it shares a name with the Taylor Swift song. So that was the first book that I picked up. Next, I picked up a book that is very, very popular and is also becoming a Netflix show, which I think the trailer just came out not that long ago, which urged me to pick it up today, and that book is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is a book that I have heard only amazing things about. It is a graphic novel, which is going to be interesting because I don't read that many graphic novels. I think the last graphic novel I read was the Avatar graphic novels because I'm a big Avatar The Last Airbender fan, but since then I haven't read a graphic novel since, and so I'm really excited to get more into graphic novels. And obviously Heartstopper is supposed to be amazing and everyone loves it, so I'm really excited to give these a read and of course watch the Netflix adaptation. Now, you know, I've been loving adult contemporary books, and I wasn't originally supposed to buy any adult contemporaries because I have so many that I haven't read yet because I did a big adult contemporary shopping spree like a couple months ago, but I couldn't resist buying one. So I ended up picking up The Kiss Quotient by Helen Wang. This is one that I've heard so many great things about. It's blurred by Sarah J. Maas, and it just sounds like a super cutesy contemporary. I actually wanted to buy this book a really long time ago. When I went to my bookstore that's closer to me, I had a voucher, and I remember seeing The Kiss Quotient when I was at the bookstore prior, but then when I went back to the bookstore to use my voucher, they were out of stock. So I was really excited to see this at the bookstore today because I'd wanted to buy this for months, and it was also the only copy on the shelf, so I feel pretty special that I managed to snag it. The last book that I bought today, which I was very back and forth about whether I was going to buy this, but eventually I just relented and bought it, and that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I again have heard awesome things about this book. This is a fantasy, and I think it contains characters that have magical abilities. Not 100% sure because I do like to go into books pretty much knowing nothing, but I've been hearing about the Diviners for years and years and years, and for some reason over the last couple of months I've just been really craving to read them. Like, I feel like I'm gonna read this series sometime soon, and so I went ahead and picked up the first book so I could start my collection of them so that eventually I can read the whole series. So yeah, I picked up the Diviners, very excited to read this sometime soon, hopefully. I also have a little bonus book. Last week I went to the bookstore that's in the train station that I go to when I go to uni, and I bought a book there, but I forgot to show it in last week's reading vlog. So the book that I picked up there was The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Like it says on this little sticker here, it is the must-read TikTok sensation, and so obviously that makes me want to read it. And I've also heard so many great things about The Atlas 6. I believe it's also in pre-production right now to become a show or a movie, so that's really cool. I do want to read this book this month, so that's another book I want to kind of fit into my TBR this month. What's also really cool about The Atlas 6, which I just discovered only like a week ago, is that this was originally self-published and then it became so popular that now it's published again with a publishing house, which is really cool that a book that's self-published can get that much popularity. So I'm really excited to read this. I've heard nothing but great things. I think it's like a dark academia kind of vibe, which is really popular right now, so really excited to read The Atlas 6. So that is the end of my mini book haul. I will see you in a little bit, probably when I start continuing to read If There's No Tomorrow. It is some time later. I always feel like when I do these late night updates, I always look crazy, but nevertheless, I have good news. I managed to finish If There's No Tomorrow by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It did really pleasantly surprise me. I definitely had low expectations going into this book, but I ended up really enjoying it. It had a really good message. It was quite impactful. There was no insta-love. The romance in this was like childhood friends to lovers. I didn't have any problem with the romance, although I think this is one of the first Jennifer Armentrout books that I've read where the romance really wasn't the main focus of this book. It was there, it was present, but the other plot points, the big overarching story, wasn't the romance, which was something I wasn't expecting because I feel like Jennifer Armentrout is known as a romance author, and every single book that I've read of hers, whether it's contemporary or paranormal, has always been very romance focused, but this really wasn't. I feel like Jennifer Armentrout had an important message she wanted to share, and she focused on that in this book. I am going to go to bed now because it is late and I need to wake up early tomorrow to go to uni, so I will probably update you tomorrow and hopefully I will be starting a new book. So it's been a few days since I last updated you, 3 to be exact. I ended up taking a little bit of a break from reading after I finished If There's No Tomorrow because I had a look at the calendar and I was way ahead of schedule to finish all my books for April, and I've been reading non-stop since this readathon began, and so I just felt like giving myself a little bit of a break from reading so that I don't burn out and go into a reading slump. Hi Pluto! Hi! Ah! Pluto! So the last thing that you saw was that I finished If There's No Tomorrow by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was for the alchemy class, but the prompt was to read a book featuring romance. And then last night at like 10 o'clock, I started reading Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, which is actually one of my quest books. And the prompt for this quest was to read a new to you author, and I've never read a book by Margaret Rogerson before. But I started reading really late last night and I was a bit slack, and so I only read up to page 42. But that is about to change because I'm hoping today can be a big reading day and I'll be able to get through a big chunk of Sorcery of Thorns. And I'm hoping to finish it by the end of the week. And today is Saturday, so in other words, I want to finish it tomorrow on Sunday. As for my thoughts on Sorcery of Thorns so far, it's okay. Again, I'm only 42 pages, so there's not really a lot to critique yet, but I really like the premise. So far, it's set in this library where the books are alive, and I really like that premise. The world seems really interesting, and I'm excited to learn more about it. The characters so far, I'm finding kind of bland, but then again, I'm only 42 pages, so I've hardly even really met any of the characters. I've heard really good things, and I'm really excited for the romance. So like I said, I'm hoping for today to be a big reading day and to get through a big chunk of this book. So let's waste no time and let's get to reading. It is much later. It's about 12:30 a.m. right now, and today has been kind of a fail reading day. My plan was just to read all day. I had nothing else to do. It's, the Easter weekend and I was home alone, so I was gonna read all day, and I wanted to get over halfway through Sorcery of Thorns. And I only read up to page 113 and I was on page 42. I didn't even read 100 pages. I don't know, guys, something about this book is just not doing it for me. I'm not engaging with the plot or the characters. I find the world to be interesting, but I'm just not engaging with what's going on. I'm not excited to continue reading. The reason that I read so little today is I would literally read a chapter and then go do something else for an hour and a half. I'd just go on my phone, scrolling through TikTok, which isn't really like me. I'm not really a person to scroll through TikTok for an hour, especially when I'm reading, because I want to be reading. But this book just wasn't engaging me. I just read a chapter and I felt like I needed a break. I just kept getting a bit bored. I feel like I had such high expectations for this book because I'd heard so many great reviews. For tonight, I've decided that I'm not going to read anymore. I'm going to try again tomorrow. Hopefully, whatever much I read tomorrow, it'll engage me and get me excited to read the rest of the story. Good night. Hi, so it's been many days since I have last updated you. I'm not gonna lie, I've been pretty slack with filming, but to be fair, not really too much has gone on. The only reading related progress that I made over the days that I wasn't filming was that 2 days ago I managed to finally finish Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, and I accidentally messed up my dust jacket. It's gonna be facing like this on the shelf anyway. This book felt like it was never going to end. It took me ages to read it because I just wasn't super engaged in the story. I found the characters to be quite boring and bland, and when I can't connect to the characters, I often just can't enjoy the story because I'm a very character orientated reader. I like to connect to my characters. I just didn't in this book. This book also had a lot of plot conveniences. There was one point in particular where I was like, that's convenient. I am pretty disappointed. Like, this book had so much hype. I saw it everywhere on BookTok and Bookstagram, but I just didn't really enjoy it that much. I think it was a bit too overhyped for what it was. Also, I was promised an enemies to lovers romance in this book, and I wouldn't really call it romance and there's an enemies to lovers, just in my opinion. Nevertheless, I did manage to complete this book, and this was actually one of my quest books where the prompt was to read a new to you author. and so I have now completed that quest and I have earned 10 guild reputation points, which is very exciting. So this is going to be the last clip for this reading vlog, so of course I'm going to do a little mini wrap up and show you all the books that I managed to read in week 2 and 3 of the Orilium Readathon. So the first book I managed to finish was This Night So Dark by Amie, Kaufman and Megan Spooner, which is a short story which comes in between book 1 and 2 of the Starbound trilogy. I liked this book. It wasn't anything amazing, but it was really too short to be anything amazing. I really enjoyed learning more about Tava. I really connected to the characters in these Broken Stars, and so I really enjoyed getting to learn more about Tava in this short story. I ended up giving This Night So Dark a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I managed to finish was If There's No Tomorrow by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was a book that I had really low expectations going in because the last couple of Jennifer L. Armentrout books that I've read have really disappointed me, and a lot of that disappointment had to do with the romance in those books. But with this book, the romance really took a back seat to the message that Jennifer L. Armentrout was trying to convey, and that made me enjoy this book way more than the last couple of Jennifer L. Armentrout books that I have read. It ended up really pleasantly surprising me. I ended up giving If There's No Tomorrow a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Finally, of course, I read Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I ended up giving Sorcery of Thorns a 2 out of 5 stars. So that was all the books that I managed to read for Orilium week 2 and half of week 3. I hope you enjoyed this reading vlog. If you are doing the Orilium Readathon, let me know how your readathon is going. How many more books do you have left to read? And I will see you next week for the very last reading vlog of the Orilium Readathon. Bye!